Triumphing in the video game industry, Nintendo never fails to always make a hit game. They're regarded as one of the top quality marketeers for video games and house some of the best quality creators, artists, graphic designers, and directors of the video game world. Since 1985, Nintendo has taken success after success with their consoles and handhelds, and even when they had low points with their consoles, they are often held up in high regard still, since they often had either a packed to the brim library of quality content or were the powerhouse compared to various other consoles at the time.
It is very rare for Nintendo to miss their stride whenever they release a new console or handheld. However, very rare isn't impossible, and there has been 2 instances where this has happened. With the Virtual Boy, a try at the hands-on virtual experience that was a complete eyesore to its audience, and the Nintendo Wii U, a gimmick fest of a console in terms of design and quality. Now, although one of these is not like the other, the Wii U sold way more numbers compared to the Virtual Boy, they still were notorious failures in Nintendo's eyes and suffered from one form of negative reception: the marketing.
Let's go back to get context. Back in 2008, Nintendo was in the talks of conceiving a new console after seeing the limitations put on by the Nintendo Wii, such as graphic infidelity in comparison to its competitors and its necessity on the Wiimotes and motion controls, which also led to a belief that the console itself was pushing away some of its core gamers because of its design being solely relied on a gimmick. And there's no denying that. The Nintendo Wii was a console reliant on the motion control gimmick in order to appease to a casual audience while also still being considered innovating for the console scene. It wasn't until April of 2011 when an official announcement was made by Nintendo that a new console was in the works and would be playable by E3 2011. And when the time finally came, the console was unveiled to the public, revealed to be known as the Nintendo Wii U. Bruh moment number 1. The console was shown to be a successor to the Wii and was not only to be compatible with Wii games, but had its own Wii mode and could use the old Wii controllers. Bruh moment number 2. The console was also reliant on a GamePad that had the design of controller but with a huge touch/game screen in the middle. It was compatible with motion camera and gyro controls along with requiring its own charger plug. Bruh moment number 3. It also showcased games that looked very similar to already existing games on the Nintendo Wii, just in an HD format. Bruh moment number 4. However, one of the worst marketing mistakes, or biggest bruh moment, has to be up until its release, where the advertisements are either A, solely focused on family-oriented advertising, or B, solely focused on the Wii U gamepad and all of its doodads and gizmos. This goes completely against their sentiments during their 2008 conference and ultimately resulted in mixed reception, a large yet unappealing launch library, and poor sales that would trend throughout the console's lifespan. They were stuck at sub 2 million in America and sub 4 million worldwide until Christmas of 2013. Holy shit. And even with a huge library of launch titles to start at, many of the titles were simply redundant, and any exclusive titles were either poorly received or simply seen as rehash of earlier products that Nintendo had made before, just now in high definition. It also didn't help that many of these launch titles were going to or had already been released on other consoles, ones more superior in comparison than the Wii U. And this, along with the whole gamepad gimmick that was heavily marketed and relied on, also shot down most third-party support for the system. For the next 4 years, big sucker Nintendo fans had to just suck it up and take what was given. And even though the Nintendo 3DS was released around the same time, that only really covered what could be done on a handheld. Anything more fitting for consoles had to be locked onto the Wii U. The Wii U was a complete failure for Nintendo in spite of its uniqueness, and as they wouldn't get the prestige they were looking for until late 2016 with the reveal of the Nintendo Switch. And even then, that was still met with skepticism until the actual drop in March of 2017. Yes, the Wii U's legacy was not what Nintendo had in mind, and even though it did receive support throughout its lifespan, that lifespan was very short and dropped the moment the Nintendo Switch began making results. The Wii U holds a legacy of a lead balloon by those it was trying to aim for with the same strategy as the Wii, but failed in the eyes of the consumers. However, to those that actually bought a Wii U, there was always something unique about it. Putting aside the overall design of the console, what lies beyond it is truly something that can only be described as a creative outlet of its time. An era of Nintendo's design creativity that really can only be covered in the time period of the early 2010s. First off, let's talk about the hardware's design itself. Now, when it first launched, the Wii U came in 2 forms, a white standard and a glossy black. The white one came with 8 GB of storage memory, while the glossy black came with 32 GB of storage memory. Considering I've never seen a white Wii U before outside of showcase videos, I'm assuming most if not all got the glossy black one. Ignoring the scuffs and beaten marks, I mean, I've owned this since 2014 and I didn't exactly hear the concept of self-control at the time. Nonetheless, the console itself is, well, it's a console. It had a power button, a disc ejector. Fun fact, disqualifying handhelds, Nintendo has more cartridge-based consoles than disc-based consoles. Just another reminder that cartridges are superior to discs. HDMI. They made it seem like it was such an innovating advancement for the Wii U. Now, of course, there are some other choices for outlets here. For one, the required power outlet needed to keep the console running, the obvious HDMI choice, but what's weird is the AV outlet is still added to the console, even though by this time, HDMI designed TVs were surpassing AV designed TVs, so it's odd to me that they still kept the AV outlet for the console. I mean, I really shouldn't be complaining. You know how much of a struggle it would have been trying to set up the Super Circuit and Mario Kart DS video without it? Another addition is a sensor bar plugin, which comes handy when playing games on Wii mode, which requires the sensor bar and original Wiimote to use. Since it does run off the Wii U's native resolution, this does mean that you can play Wii games at full anti-aliasing 1080p quality. Of course, most Wii games already look good on my HDMI converter and also uses less memory when recording, so I'll gladly stick with the original console, but the option is there for people who have Wii games or just don't want to buy an HDMI converter for their Wii. Now we take a look at the main gimmick tied to this console, the Wii U GamePad. Think of it as playing the bottom portion of a Nintendo DS or 3DS. You got all the main controls, a second screen, and most importantly, another charger spot. I don't think there was a way around this issue. I can understand the problems with it, such as taking up too much cord space and also just being kind of meh at power level, though I think the main problem is the actual battery in the gamepad. Seriously, this thing dies way too fucking fast. This was 4 minutes long! How are you gonna supply this combustible engine of a controller and let it die by the time I take it off the charger and hop in my bed? And before you ask, this was a complaint at launch. The thing would only last at best 3 hours completely fresh out the box. Now granted, this thing is almost a decade old for me, but my 3DS, which is even older, lasts way longer off the charger than this fucking failed dinner plate. Despite the awful battery, there really isn't anything else flawed about this controller for me. It's got a stylus, which is helpful for any DS emulated games or any forms of puzzles or drawings. It has a comfortable grip with its rounded cheeks on the backside of the console, along with the handles across the top to help your fingers fit snugly between each part. The ZL and ZR buttons feel so natural to push down on and are the perfect shape for the 2 back buttons. The analog and camera stick being on the same latitude, though weird in design, actually works pretty well with this controller, and it is easy to get used to. I mean, if the DualShock controller could do it flawlessly, then so can the Wii U. Finally, the TV option, which essentially works like a remote control. I'm probably not the first guy to say this, but was I the only guy that used this frequently? It's not a bad addition for the console, and since my TV never came with a remote, this was always my go-to option. Of course, we can't just talk about this plastic waste without bringing up the obvious. What the hell was this supposed to be for? The Wii U gamepad screen is honestly not bad, and I really do mean it. The touchscreen is precise with the inputs of your stylus movement and actually does pretty good just for your fingers, at least much more than the DS and 3DS, though that also may be because of the bigger screen size. The input latency between the TV, console, and gamepad is literally non-existent. Any input done will share the same results at the exact same time on both screens with next to no lag. And that brings up my final point, the synchronization between the gamepad screen and the TV screen. Now obviously if you're walking away too far or have something completely blocking the relay point between the console and the gamepad, yeah, you're gonna get some funky results between the 2 screens. But usually the 2 screens are always showing exactly the same thing between each other. This is especially notable since, like I said before, the Wii U didn't have a lot of input latency between the 3 devices, and the fact that the Wii U could also do all of this with an online system that was improved 5-fold compared to the Wii's counterpart is saying something. All in all, putting aside the stupid battery and charger problems, I really like this controller. Sure, it just looks like I'm holding a garbage bin lid in front of you, but it's a special garbage bin lid that fits nice and right in the palm of my hands that honestly doesn't have much flaws outside of its communication problems that rarely come unless you distance yourself. Plus, the button and stick layout isn't anything weird. Everything is overly large so any hand size can hold a firm grip onto the gamepad, and destroying your fingers from doing crazy stuff with the button shouldn't happen all that much. Trust me when I say I prefer snaking in Mario Kart DS on the Wii U D-pad rather than the scrunched DS D-pad. Finally, we turn on the gamepad and we already got another thing I just love about the Wii U. The design of the HUD and UI. Man, I have no idea who was the UI and sound designer for the system software of the 3DS and Wii U, but can we please bring them back on board? I never found the menu itself to be cluttered by any means. In fact, I always found it to be helpful for organizing specific applications and games, especially with stuff like folders, which definitely help with the virtual console releases. Just like with its predecessor, the Wii U shares a lot of similar applications with the Wii, such as the software setting, Meme Maker, the literal Wii menu itself, and kind of the activity log, notification, and parental system. Though the activity log and notifications are separate from each other, unlike the Wii, which uses sort of mail system for both of them, and the parental system is separate from the settings. You also have similarity with the internet application, something that has to be downloaded on the Wii however, and a community board, except instead of being separate applications like Check Me Out and Everybody Votes, it's under one integrated system application, that being Miiverse, which I actually don't know if it made its debut for the 3DS or was added in a later update. I'm thinking the latter just based off core memory, but if anyone knows, please correct me in the comments. I loved using Miiverse. It was like a Nintendo Twitter of sorts, except less toxic and more censored. It was always cool seeing what people had to say about specific games in their specific communities, and I mean like a community for each Wii U title released, not like an overall community for one series. God, I still remember this one time I spelled out fuck in like the most horrific handwriting possible and getting a warning over it, no surprise. And being the biggest suck up towards the moderator by sending them a message being like, "Oh, I'm sorry, please don't ban me. I love your consoles and games and I don't want to get banned. Please don't do it. I'm your biggest fan." And, you know, it's just a complete bootlicker I was. But can you blame me? I loved hanging around the community and talking with the other 25 people when the Wii U was at its peak prime. Even when you're not in the Miiverse application itself, there was a point in time, at least up until 2017, when Miiverse posts would show up on the Wii U Plaza. And that to me was like the coolest thing ever, because you would like see all these posts from people from different sub-communities talking about how much they fucking love Cars 3, or some great illustration of Ganon's huge sword. And I mean huge sword. Like his sword. You know, his sword? Yeah. Huge. It was also cool since it was always constantly updated to reflect given changes. So any new virtual console or AAA release would automatically be up there since that's the new hot thing all the Wii U owners were talking about. The music though, man, the fucking music. I could go on for hours about the Wii U's use of spacey or heavenly ambience for its music and applications. This had been a starting thing since the Nintendo DSi, but it seemed to have been ramped up with the release of the 3DS and Wii U. And honestly, I do miss this sort of style put into their menus, especially with the Switch menu nowadays. I mean, props to the Switch menu for being so simple and optimized to allow for fast runs in the menu, but there was always something more special to video game menus with these sort of designated ambience and artistic directions, like with the floating monochromatic toolbars as the environment, the glossy and rounded shapes of the menu files, and the menu music with that heavenly fade to it. Oh my god. Some of my favorite menu system tracks have to be the music for the downloads application, the activity log, which I'm thankful is an actual activity log and not just a time record and a daily post-it, the one song that plays on the TV when making a new user, and just the whole of Meme Maker. God damn, they really sent this one out of the ballpark. Not just in terms of the music, but also the additional features and options to allow better detail for your Mii. I mean, that was kind of a no-brainer, but to me, that shit was like a complete technological upgrade. I made so many goddamn Miis straight from the internet because of just how much more freedom there was in this version. The GamePad also has its own unique music tracks for each of these applications, usually being a different remix version of the same track or the same track with a few of the instruments removed to give it more of a calm tone to it. Hell, the GamePad even influences the menu itself. If you let it sit on its own for a while, the whole menu ambiance will kind of slow down in a way. Maybe not the perfect choice of words to describe it, but you know what I'm referring to if you own this beautiful creation by God. Some other integrated applications include the Nintendo eShop, which has unfortunately seen a recent shutdown, so rip all those exclusives and virtual console releases, but I got footage of it before the shutdown just to show what there was for it. Now, the Wii U eShop was the first ever online shop I've gone through. I never had access to the Wii or 3DS eShop since we had very limited Wi-Fi and my internet time was monitored often, so sites like Amazon and eBay I never really got to hear outside of simple adult conversations. And plus, why the hell would I waste my time on any of that when I was trying to watch SML and Kid President skits? You could only imagine my reaction when I first connected to the world of console monopolized digital commerce. I still remember every time I got paid a decent amount of money, I would go straight to Walmart, get myself an eShop card, and buy literally anything Mario related straight from there when nothing new was interesting to me. Hell, I still have a collection of all the eShop cards I got. To be fair to the eShop, it was the only thing for a while that helped me discover new franchises outside of the Mario realm, which is something even the new games themselves couldn't get me on board of. Mr. Driller, Golden Sun, Super Nintendo Donkey Kong Country, Earthbound, Mighty Switch Force, even Zelda surprisingly. Well, I've heard of the Zelda franchise along with a few others of these through external media sources, but playing them for the first time was a completely new experience for me. Man, I was always so anticipated for those seasonal sales and holidays, booting up the menu as fast as I could, hearing the menu music change to match with the season going on, and getting ready to cash in my hard-earned allowance just to finally buy fucking Duck Hunt. I mean, it was kind of a fun game if I'm going to be honest. I always thought the rating system was helpful. Now, I'm not referring to that 2-question system, that was always kind of doo-doo. More so the actual star rating system. That and the video previews were always good to look at before actually considering buying the game. You could even download Netflix, YouTube, and Crunchyroll on your Wii U. So yes, at one point the Wii U was the ultimate home entertainment system. Suck on that, Roku, you fucking piece of trash. Another cool application was the internet browser. If I'm gonna be honest, I only really use this one because of either some of the game's e-manuals forcing you through here, or because of this little curtain function, which I think is cute. Most of the sites beside Google were so slow at loading, I would have been done loading a page on Internet Explorer. It was still a neat thing for the system, but ultimately I can see why they got rid of it. Plus, it wasn't just an exclusive on the Wii U, as the 3DS had it too. And as far as I remember, it loaded pages and images much more faster on there than on the Wii U. Really, the only application I can't talk about is Wii U Chat for many reasons. 1, it shut down. 2, I didn't have any friends to connect or chat with through this app. I mean, those sales numbers aren't lies. 3, my camera is more busted up than an Android made in the same year. God, I was such an inconsiderate bastard when I was younger. But can you blame me when I used to play rubber Ross courses as a kid? Speaking of which, I guess it's time to talk about the library lineup for the Wii U, and why I was so selective on what I could and couldn't own. Now, call me crazy for saying this, but I believe that the Wii U era was the most creative era for Nintendo since the GameCube era. Okay, now even I admit that's far-reaching, but in terms of how Nintendo brands themselves now, there was definitely some more leniency to the games released on the Wii U. Now this wasn't always the case, and you could tell at the start that just like with the 3DS, they wanted to start presenting themselves under a more organized and recognized brand image, and so they began going mainstream with their games, which is why a lot of their more top franchises were pretty bland this era, especially the Super Mario franchise with the release of New Super Mario Bros. U and Super Mario 3D World. Now that's not to say that these are bad games by any means, but if you talk to people about these games or tell them to rank them in comparison to the other games, these ones will probably be talked about less or ranked on the lower end of things. The Wii U launch lineup is nothing really to write home about. I mean, yeah, it was pretty large, but most of it was from third-party support. The only third-party support if you want to be real here. It seemed like Ubisoft was actually considering this to be the next big thing. I mean, so many of their titles were added for the launch, and they still had plenty of games added during the first few months of its release. But even they saw the ship sinking and quickly hopped out of it before it completely downed on itself. So yeah, a console full of AAA releases, which I mean isn't the worst thing if you're a fan of said company, since now you'll have an entire package of quality content by the same guys, well, putting emphasis on quality because some of these titles, yeah, we'll get to them soon. But it does lack variety to it, even with the many different Nintendo franchises added to the system. But the creative liberty to some of these games is truly awe-inspiring. I mean, yeah, you're gonna have some more bland titles out there like the aforementioned New Super Mario Bros. U, Super Mario 3D World, Mario Party 10, and Mario Party Tennis Ultra Smash! But some of these titles are genuinely some of the most unique titles ever produced by Nintendo. Game & Wario was a spin-off of an already existing Mario spin-off series that puts a twist on the sort of short and quick response Game & Watch game design with a Wario twist. You have a whole bunch of these weird mini-games, if you can even call them that are kind of addicting. I used to play Gamer and Patchwork for hours just because of how addicting it was, or how much of it I could relate to as a kid. Seriously, I wasted nights playing New Super Mario Bros. On the DS thinking it was my only purpose in life at that point. Then you have Star Fox Guard, a tower defense game done in the Star Fox universe, which allows a unique gameplay style of looking at your monitor to watch a desired location for any enemies, while showing an overall view of the field on the TV with various monitors that you can switch to. You also have Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, which sees the island's inhabitants throw a huge party a la Mario Party style, and it requires a unique function of the amiibos as a gameplay mechanic. Okay, so maybe we should differentiate the definition of creativity here.
The titles here are pretty unique given that they are completely separate gameplay-wise in terms of their original series, but in a broader sense, they're still just bland. They just only change up the gameplay for a series or for a spin-off, which is what most of these games feel like, a spin-off. But you know, most of the time outside of the gameplay, spin-offs still have a lot of creative differences compared to their original series counterpart. Like maybe a completely unique art style or a breakaway from the usual cast of characters in favor of more original characters to, you know, give it that feeling that you aren't playing your usual mainline series. The WarioWare and Mario and Luigi RPG series do this pretty well because outside of using a few of the main characters, they are completely different in their own ways. Like, sometimes they might have different world buildings, they're different in the gameplays too compared to the mainline series. And even if they want to focus more on the characters, you know, like retain all of the original cast characters, they'll still make the gameplay, like, fun, you know, like Hyrule Warriors and Mario Kart. Is Mario Kart still a spin-off? I don't know if that's a spin-off still. Like, it's a spin-off from the main series, that's kind of how it started too, but it's advanced so much to the point where it feels more like its own series rather than... Like, obviously it's still part of the whole broad Mario umbrella, but... Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe we'll figure that out next time. Here it's just Animal Crossing characters, but we took the exact formula of Mario Party and tied another gimmick to it that is required just for basic commands. Or look, we made a tower defense game, but it has Star Fox graphics. So it's just exactly like Star Fox. Boom, we got $1 billion settlement. I feel like a lot of these games were supposed to be tech demos for the Wii U. And in fact, Game & Wario was actually a culmination of a bunch of launch title tech demos that were supposed to come with the Wii U, and rebranded with a WarioWare theme in it.
Despite this, there are actually some better titles out there that flex a good amount of uniqueness to them, some of them actually being pretty good. I know this is going to sound like a complete joke, but I honestly thought Dr. Luigi had a good twist on the usual formula. Well, maybe not a twist, but the additional gameplay of Operation L, yes, that's the name of it, was a good time waster. To speak more favorably for Luigi, the release of New Super Luigi U is a much harder variant of New Super Mario Bros. U, but with completely different level design and a more challenging gameplay structure to it. It's so unique as a title, some call it to be the best of the New Super Mario series of games. So good for it. The next game I want to talk about will be brief since I already have a video in the works on it, but Mario Kart 8 did so much for Mario Kart up to this point and was what probably helped the Wii U get a few more millions in its sales numbers. Also, it probably has the best form of second screen uniqueness in comparison to Mario Kart DS and 7. I mean, it may look cluttered at first, but this shit was honestly kind of genius, since all of the options aren't anything oriented around the gameplay itself, so you could play the whole game without even looking down at the gamepad. Even so, stuff like the map and horn are still accessible through control input or are built into the HUD itself. This shit was honestly revolutionary to me, and with all the other things added to this game, it was honestly one of my top Mario Kart games for a while. And I'd still argue that in terms of what new they added compared to the other games in the series. However, one of the biggest games on the Wii U at the time, and the one I fucking desired to the core, was also probably the most unique title on the Wii U. Super Mario Maker. An entire game dedicated to one of my favorite series at the time that allowed me to create my own levels and play other people's levels too? Sign me the fuck up! Hell, I even got the special package that came bundled with a handbook. It's got some cool stuff about how they designed this game, but otherwise most of it is simply PNGs of Mario characters, objects, and enemies plastered all over the book. But hey, it's got Miyamoto's signature in it, so there you go, I'm Miyamoto approved. This game definitely pulled off the whole two-screen gimmick best. One screen being for gameplay purposes, while the other was for the world building and editing feature. It just doesn't work well with a controller, and also the touchscreen is much more responsive compared to the Switch's touchscreen. So honestly, if it weren't for the active online support and much more added bonuses, I'd probably stuck with this one. I mean, I still think the way it's all designed is leagues better than how Super Mario Maker 2 makes you do all of it on one screen with a controller if you want a definitive quality look. But you know what they say, fortune favors the more successful console. And 13 million is not fucking successful. I still think it's a good title even with the sequel out, and definitely the best in terms of TV gamepad design games. I mean, that's no contest, especially when you look at games like Star Fox 7! Even then, there are still many more great unique titles for the system outside of what I just experienced as a kid. Like Yoshi's Woolly World, which I am just now realizing that it's spelled with 2 L's and not 1. Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, Pushmo, I still regret not getting this in time, World, Xenoblade Chronicles X, Nintendo Land, Paper Mario Color Splash. Oh come on, where's all the support for this one? It's not even that bad. They even got a few new IPs for the system. Would it be crazy if I told you that Splatoon, the big Nintendo kiddie shooter, actually had its starts on the Wii U? Yeah. Crazy. The Wii U also had its handful of good remakes and re-releases, such as the first time ever re-release of Earthbound on Virtual Console, and the HD remakes of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, which also added a few quality of life updates to the game for a better overall experience compared to their original release. I think my favorite things about the library have to be the covers for some of these games. Their mere presence essentially describes what game you're about to get yourself into. GamePad Pandemonium is such a quip that can only really fit for a game as perfect as Game & Wario. Hell, even Wario admits it's the best game ever. A lot of these games had a lot of controller support. I always thought it was GamePad and maybe Wiimote, but no, there's actually a lot of options, Okay, now this is just way too much even for controller options. Also, some of the disc labels were pretty creative with how they showed the images on a donut-like circle. Like the new Super Mario Bros. U one with the characters and enemies going around the circular plane, and the Game & Wario one, which is just a huge face of Wario, and they put his nose on the hole so that when you're holding your finger in it, it looks like it fits with the color of his nose. Such a cool little thing to do. Then you have Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, which, yep, that is indeed the cover art for the game. Just shifted more to the right. I think I'm just about done rambling here. The point is, the Wii U era, although the start of Nintendo mainstreaming a lot of their franchises, still saw a lot of great releases and some very unique titles that break away from a series' original formula. Whether that be for better or for worse is up to you.
If there's one more thing we gotta talk about, it's gotta be the online system. Rather than using the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection like the DS and Wii did, the Wii U implemented a new one, back from the 3DS, I'm pretty sure, or maybe it was installed after the 3DS launched. But it was known as the Nintendo Network, and it was a vast improvement over the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. However, looking back at it, I kind of realized that the Wi-Fi isn't as great as I thought it used to be. Like, I remember as a kid just playing through this thing, and like there was like nothing, there was no lag. I mean, yeah, the only games I played were Mario Kart 8 and Super Mario Maker, and those two generally do much more better online than like Smash Bros. But playing back on it now, it's a lot worse than I remember. I wouldn't say a lot worse. Like it doesn't go to Nintendo Wi-Fi connection levels. Trust me. But it's just not how I remembered it. Now I don't know if my memory is just fucking with me and just making me remember the good stuff, or maybe the console has degraded to a point where the connection is actually starting to get tampered with or something. But no, I don't think it's that. I think maybe the servers might be screwed up or something, which honestly wouldn't surprise me. Nintendo always has these kind of screwed up servers issues every once in a while with their stuff before they eventually shut it down. But this thing just doesn't perform as well as I thought it used to. I feel like there were a lot of times where the online could have done much better than suspected, but it seemed like they only just saw the improvements during testing and thought that was enough work. And this isn't me being privileged with Switch Online, because even that feels about as weak as this one. And there were times where the online on the Wii U could actually perform better than that on Switch, but it's still inconsistent a lot of the times. I mean, an improvement is still an improvement, but even Xbox 360 had a better online connection than what the Wii U gives out. Does it work by the end of the day? Yeah, for the most part, but I still think there could have been a lot of points where the online system should have been improved in, like the overall connection and also dealing with peer-to-peer service in specific games. It may not have been top of the line, but it certainly could have been better, especially in the era of online most of the electronic world was at this point. Well, in spite of that, the Nintendo Wii U was the first ever console that used online to implement updates and DLC. This helped games a lot like Splatoon, Mario Maker, and Mario Kart by adding more content to it. But even then, at the time, DLC was just that, downloadable content. It was like an extra rather than being just unfinished content that gets added later on.
The Nintendo Wii U was a fall from grace in terms of the console of that generation. It failed to live up to expectations and had a marketing expedition that was its biggest cause of failure, and kicked the Wii U out of public interest. God, if only they called it something like Nintendo UDS or something.
So yeah, to many, this console may have just been a complete gimmick fest with no redeeming qualities or attributes besides the own shape of the controller, with a poor standout of a library. However, in spite of that, the quality and design is pretty top notch. I will admit that myself. The aesthetic is pleasing and heavenly to hear, and though there are some games that are on the side, whether that be from trying to mainstream the series or because of poor form of creativity, there are still a lot of really good games on this console, and they were all exclusives at one point until the Switch's arrival. Plus, I will admit, I had my fun times with this console. I still remember the day I got it back in 2014. You know, the special black Wii U bundle that came with New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U, and also Wii Sports Club. By the way, I still haven't gotten that thing to work yet. And I remember being up that entire weekend just playing through the entirety of New Super Mario Bros. U, and then getting my ass handed to me in New Super Luigi U. The console aided in my discovery of different types of franchises and series outside of just Super Mario and Mario Kart, and it was one of my earliest reaches with the online world unmonitored and completely carefree. This thing got me through a lot of nights, both figuratively and literally. Yeah, I used the GamePad as a nightlight a few times before. I mean, I shouldn't really be embarrassed about it, since when I woke up in the morning, that means I could just continue where I left off of. Though leaving it running all those nights probably contributed to the shitty battery I have now. But a trade deal is a trade deal. Do I regret getting a Wii U? No, because I didn't buy it. My father bought it for me. Plus, I don't think I'd be the person who I am now without experiencing this console. It may have not only just shaped the future for Nintendo, but it also shaped my future. Plus, until Game & Wario gets on the fucking Switch, ain't no way this console's getting out of my house. We're done? Is that a wrap? Oh, thank God, dude. Ugh. We gotta keep fighting against this shit.